unboxing 15 kilogram of protein from Bulk Powders. So I ordered 2 different kinds, and it also was a very specific situation, which was that there was a discount on them. Now, first of all, I ordered whey protein isolate, and then I ordered the vegan protein. Now let's first take a look at the macros, and then I will explain why I purchased and repurchased these things again and again. So the first thing now is whey protein isolate. I had whey protein before. I also bought it from the same company because the company seems to make somewhat reasonable products. Now, this year is now the pure whey isolate, and this now comes with less fat and less sugar compared to the whey normal, basically the pure whey, which is the normal whey. Now, I read up on the Wikipedia page that basically the normal whey is kind of just filtered, whereas this other one goes through a different process again. Now, this results in the following macronutrients. We have, I will show it first and then I will read it because I cannot read it and show it at the same time. Now, we have fat, 0.5 grams. These are per 100 grams. We have carbs, carbohydrates, 2 grams, of which sugars, I assume this is still lactose in basically from the milk. And then we have fiber, 0 grams. We have protein, 87 grams. There is also a version from basically the same protein that has 90 grams, but it's even more expensive compared to this. This cost in the discount now 55 euros per 2.5 kilogram bag. And I also ordered this year, which is the vegan protein from Bulk, which cost I think 33 or 32 euros. Now the shipping cost was reduced to 0 because I ordered this much. And from the website it was at 55 euros, basically it was reduced to 0. So now I want to explain, or now let's just first go to the second one, which is now the vegan protein. They also have new packaging now, which is basically there are two things to the new packaging. And already something seems to have broken. There is basically somehow a hole in the bottom. Now, the first thing about this new packaging is that it is now made out of something that is plasticky. Before it was made out of something that is less plasticky, that looked like this, so the material is slightly different. Also, these were apparently fully compostable, and at least that was written on the package all the time. So, compostable pouch is on the bottom. Now, these had a couple of disadvantages. First of all, if I have them in the kitchen, and sometimes I have the kitchen counter basically, I get over the kitchen counter with something wet, and then I put this on, and this was also becoming wet. And since the outside at least is kind of similar a little bit to paper, this also became wet and maybe not the best. Now, I also had Huel packages, and the Huel packages had the advantage that they were kind of more like plasticky. So if I would put this into a travel bag, let's say, then I would feel more comfortable with the Huel packages. Now, what is Huel? Huel is a meal replacement shake, but this is now protein powder. Now, the second thing now I have, and I purchased this now for the last couple of years, again and again, so maybe in total I ordered 25 kilograms of this, so probably more than this, probably more like 30 or 40 kilograms. This is the vegan version. So what I have to mention here is that previously I was actually vegetarian, and I also tried to go vegan a couple of times, not really per se for going vegan, but I basically tried on separate days, not on separate days, but on several days to just see what would happen to a certain extent. But I eventually decided that I would no longer be vegetarian, so I also looked into other things as well. And this is also the reason I did not purchase as much normal whey before, even though I knew that from a bioavailability standpoint, the whey is basically better. Now, there is also beef protein isolate, which is basically protein made from meat. And this is also selling on Bulk Powders. This would be the only meat solution that also comes in a powdered form, which I know of. Now, in terms of the vegan protein powder, now this is a vegan protein blend, and this already is kind of the main thing that makes it so attractive. So these now are the micronutrients as well as the ingredients. First of all, we have vegan protein blend, which contains pea protein isolate, soya protein isolate. There might be a potential downside to the soya protein, so there seem to be some things in soya protein that I think to a certain extent emulate estrogen, and this might be a potential issue for males who don't want as much estrogen. So basically it seems to emulate estrogen, and this might be a potential downside, but I don't really know how to go around this downside, because soy seems to be a somewhat complete protein compared to other proteins which seem to be not as complete, with complete meaning that they have a higher bioavailability. With bioavailability again meaning So if you have 100 grams of a protein source, the bioavailability kind of says how much of this the body can use to then synthesize its own protein. So a bioavailability, I think egg whites have a bioavailability of 100, meaning 100 grams of egg white protein, if the body would be able to take as much in one sitting, would be able to be synthesized into 100 grams of amino acids in the body. So now soy protein seems to be a somewhat a complete protein, which is the reason it is found in so many protein powders, which and again, it has the downside that it might have potential hormonal effects. Then we also have pumpkin seed protein, which in terms of taste is, I think, fairly nice. I also had pumpkin seed oil a couple of times, but it's also quite expensive. Now quinoa flour is in there, flaxseed powder. And now out of these ingredients, if one compares them with Mealshake Huel, then one finds that the first couple of ingredients, so I think 3 out of the 4 first couple of ingredients are actually identical, so you cannot really see properly, but I can read. So we have pea protein, we have ground flaxseed, we have brown rice protein, tapioca flour, sunflower oil powder, and then we have a micronutrient blend. And so now these are the couple of first ingredients here, and then we go back to the vegan protein powder, which then also has, so we are basically done with the proteins, and then we have emulsifier, which is sunflower lecithin, so also sunflower in there, and then we have a digestive enzyme, whereas in the Huel we have a couple of other things as well, kombucha powder and Bacillus coagulans. So we have in both basically something that is said or is probably meant to make it more digestible, and then we also have flaxseed in there. We also have pea protein isolate, I think, in both, and then we also have flaxseed in both. And so it seems to be the case that this is kind of the cheating, the better version compared to Huel. I also seem to have an issue where every time I have too much flaxseed, I basically get somewhat nauseatic. Maybe I recently have been thinking about this, that this might also be basically, so if one goes into the direction of being nauseatic and also fasting, and also there is also a phenomenon called the keto flu, where basically if one fasts for maybe a couple of hours too much, or not too much, but if one is not used to this, or there might be an electrolyte imbalance that one basically is on the edge of basically not falling into sickness, but becoming sick of this. And this is also what seems to happen with me with flaxseed. I don't know why specifically, but we find flaxseed in both, and I assume now that in this year, Huel Black, there is a higher portion of flaxseed in there, and this seems to give me kind of nausea. A couple of days ago, maybe 2 days ago, I tried again just half a scoop in a shake. Basically, that was made out of 2.5 scoops of, in total, basically meal powder, and half a scoop only was Huel, and again, the next day, kind of, I woke up nauseatic. So I don't know what it is, but I assume it's the flaxseed. Now, I also, in this year, tried Huel again. Why? Because there have been, over the last couple of years, I tried a couple of different things. First of all, I tried basically, the main idea was, what if I could somewhat industrialize my nutrition, but also optimize it at the same time? What if I could basically reduce the time needed to shop groceries, to basically make meals, then to eat the meals, and so on and so forth, and make it more efficient, such that I have actually more time in order to do the things that I actually want to do, and not just spend 1 hour a day just eating food. Now, of course, there's also a social aspect to food and so on and so forth, but time is, I think, the most precious resource, and if I can get more of it by basically just standardizing these things. It seems to be the case that whenever I tried to basically venture out into a new area of nutrition, that eventually I found myself, okay, but how can I now meal prep this? How can I pre-cook this for the entire week? And this always ended up with me, okay, now Sunday, it's like 2 or 3 hours of cooking time, and then it's like cleaning up afterwards, and then you have lots of meals, and then you need to store them all, and then you have them in containers, and then you need to wash the containers afterwards, and so on and so forth. So what I've been recently, in the last couple of years, now mostly the last 2 years, been kind of exploring is how I could make milkshakes out of different ingredients. Now, of course, there might be many different downsides to milkshakes, such as if one basically eats, then there is also the chewing, then it's also slower eating, the digestion might also be slower. If one consumes something in a powdered form, there might be a higher blood sugar spike, and so on and so forth. Many downsides. Nonetheless, I have been trying to kind of get at this, and first of all, I tried a couple of different, so basically I researched a couple of different products. I landed on Huel Black because it has a higher protein, and then I eventually realized that I cannot buy as much Huel Black as I would eat. Mostly it's just too expensive. So I searched for other alternatives, and it seems to be the case that for So this bag here is 2.5 kilograms. Now it's filled with oats because I actually still have Huel Black, but it's not in this bag. Now, this is 1.35 kilograms. I mentioned, so I said this wrongly. This is 1.35 kilograms. Or it's even, yeah, no, it's 1.53 kilograms. So 1.5 kilograms. Now this costs 31 euros with the student discount. And that's 10%, I think. Now, this here is 2.5 kilograms, and it's mostly the same ingredients with less fat, but then also it has less carbs in it. Now, the carbs, so in total, I think kind of the big picture summary of kind of nutrition of the, not nutrition, but out of the 3 different micronutrients. It seems to me that carbs are the cheapest, then protein is the most expensive, and fats are somewhere in between, depending on the fat source. But protein is ridiculously expensive, especially if one wants to have a high bioavailability. So now if one basically goes from this, and this is something that is, for me, is too high in fat. So I ate it, and I ate it again, and it seems to be the case that you cannot just eat the same thing. I cannot just eat the same thing again and again, because on some days I do a cardiovascular workout, and on some days I do another workout, and on some days I might have more steps, and on some days I might have done something else, and on some days my body, after 2 weeks of eating oats, of course this was a very bad example. But it seems to be the case that basically my nutrient need, somewhat obviously, seems to not be always the same. So as I go through life, I have different needs. If I have more sore muscles, then I might need more protein. If I then have done 2 hours of running, then I might need more carbs to refill the glycogen stores in order for the body not to make glycogen out of fat and protein. And so it seems to be the case that basically my nutrient need switches all the time. Now, there is also some habituation going on, especially since I have been trying to kind of standardize my weekly workout schedule, and this then also helped, and also the sleep schedule, basically somewhat making it somewhat more standardized, seems to help. Nonetheless, it seems to vary, and therefore I cannot just eat the same thing again and again, and therefore something like Huel is out of the race. Why? Because there is only one product of Huel. Of course, now I could buy the different Huel products. I could buy Huel Black, I could buy the normal Huel, but that's only like 2 different products. And I think I need at least more basic options. So I've separated basically my nutrition, or at least so there is still normal food. But I also try to eat, I just eat milkshakes or drink milkshakes whenever I think it's useful. Whenever I am so excited about something or I need to work something. So there are 2 kind of different things. The first one is being so excited that you don't want to stop, and the other thing is that you're also stressed that you cannot really stop because you just don't have time and you need to get this done, and so on and so forth. And so I found myself that in these situations, it is very helpful to have milkshakes ready. Now, in the last couple of years now, I have tried mostly this first as a milkshake. So basically, from Huel, I went to a cheaper version of Huel that is, well, it's less expensive, it's higher in protein, and I can add carbs to this. Adding carbs is not really a problem. I can go to the grocery store, I can buy oats, and then basically I have more fat and I have more things in it. But what about if you want to also have it in a food shake? Then Bulk also offers oats, and oats are kind of the only carb source they actually offer. And the oats they offer have 10.5 grams of protein, whereas the oats you get from the grocery store, if you buy the oat flakes, then they have 13.5 grams of protein, and the fat is also different. So the oats from Bulk have 8 grams of fat, whereas the oats from the grocery store have 1 gram of fat. So basically 1 gram is basically redistributed from fat to protein, one could also say, because approximately fat has twice the energy density compared to protein. So now, the main guiding idea behind this project is, what if I don't have to eat, but instead I just drink my food? I have basically my kitchen, and I have I have a couple of different protein powders, or a couple of different milkshakes, which I also then make, so I can take multiple different things and I then mix it into a milkshake. This could be 2 portions of vegan protein powder and 1 portion of oat. This could be maybe mixing whey protein with something else. And so I get different nutrient profiles, and I basically can buy these ingredients single, and then I can also add salt and so forth, and so on and so forth. So first of all, I have these basic ingredients which I buy in 2.5 kilogram bags, and then I also have smaller ingredients which I get in these bags. For example, starch. Now this is not from the company, but the bag is from the company. Then I also have broccoli powder. Then I also have psyllium husk powder, in order to, basically this is a fiber lever that I tried a couple of times to add it to protein, to whey protein specifically, in order to just have more fiber in it, to potentially slow down digestion, and so on and so forth. Then I also have organic flaxseed. Then I also have a couple of other things as well. So what about vegetables then? I took kind of the approach that I now have kind of taken for many different areas of this project, which is, okay, who is a supplier that I can get reasonable prices at and where I can order again and again. Now there is a big downside to bulk, which is that their websites discounts are like ridiculous. Therefore I often order actually from Amazon, because Amazon seems to buy bulk in bulk and then sell it again at sometimes a reduced price, especially if one subscribes to a product, but this is not always available, which is the reason I ordered this again from basically the store, from their website, and not again from Amazon, where it kind of usually sells at kind of the discounted price, especially if you then subscribe to a product, and then if you have multiple products in your subscription, then you get a reduced price overall. So now what I also added is bulk complete greens. So what is kind of if I go through this filter, which is, I want to have basically meal shakes. So everything that is in here needs to be a powder. I cannot make my own powders because that's ridiculously time consuming, and also powders then are everywhere in my apartment. So the filter something has to go through is that first of all it should be also somewhat reasonably priced, of course. Now the first filter is okay, powdered form. The second, now I forgot what the second actually was. The thing about greens is, okay, vegetables, you buy them at the grocery store, then you have like 16 tomatoes, and then you need to wash the 16 tomatoes, and then after a couple of days, you might have already a tomato, which might have basically mold on it, and then, well, you need to cut it out, and then you need to throw out the organic trash, and so on and so forth. There are multiple downsides to eating like this, so a couple of different steps towards basically industrialization compared to basically normal nutrition, as one cooks and eats 3 times a day, and this takes like 3 hours. Now, on this spectrum, one could get frozen vegetables, and one could maybe take these frozen vegetables and turn them into powder. But now, what if I could get just a vegetable powder that just covers my basic nutrition? Of course, that's not the thing I eat on a daily basis every single day. But now, I've decided basically to buy this, even though this is kind of ridiculously expensive compared to the other ingredients. So I don't know, actually, I think this is about 30 euros per 500 gram, which is very expensive. But this is now more on the supplement side, even though all of these are kind of supplements, but I also am thinking about this as all of nutrition. Nutrition, in my case, is food and supplements, one could say. Now, that's actually most of the story as of now. I now have a couple of different powders standing in my kitchen. My kitchen is mostly powders. I every now and then cook. Every now and then I also cook. I still have meat, I still have a freezer, and so on and so forth. But what I wanted is to have the option to not have to cook, and to still know that this is something that's reasonable, and that this is something that is kind of nutritionally as optimal as I can manage at this point in time.